Hi, Ann. Okay, so we'll launch right into the school construction situation, and that's why Pender's with us. So, Pender, do you want to start the process, or shall we have Scott or one of the members of the committee?
Well, I think it would be great if one of you would start, so I'll know exactly. Are we talking about the Valley Unified project?
We certainly want to start with that. We may get to other questions, but we definitely want to start with that.
Well, okay, maybe I can start, and Scott, please fill in where I'm either potentially off the mark or incomplete. Fair enough?
That is fair enough.
Okay. So, I guess a little over a year ago, I'm going to start with the assumption that you're all familiar with the plan that
Excuse me, Martha, this is not coming out clear for me. Is that
education service, and they were selected. Is it better? Is it better now if I hold my phone up?
I can hear it better. How are you doing, Fern?
Well, it seemed like it was going to get a little bit better, but then it started making that sound again, so I'm not really sure. If you can continue, Commissioner Makin, then we'll figure it out, I guess.
Sure, I'm so sorry if I'm coming in poorly. This is the best I have right now. Well, let me try one other thing. Hang on, guys. How's this? Is this better?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That solves the problem. I'm using my cell phone speakerphone versus my routing it through my car announcer. But either way, I'm hands-free, so don't worry.
No, it's 100% better.
Oh, great. Okay. So you're all familiar with the Integrated Consolidated Construction Project history and the fact that the Valley Unified Education Service Center was approved for the construction of a school that would serve Madawaska, RSU 33, and MSAD 27. Did I get that right? Or is it MSAD 33 and RSU 27? At any rate, you know who I mean. The St. John's Valley. And that received approval to move forward. They've had, I think, 2, maybe 3 different either Embrace or FEDUS grants to support a lot of additional activity for getting people on board and generating the plan and so forth. A little over a year ago, the concern came up that some school governance structure needed to exist in order for them to actually run a school. And that information was provided to them. It was, I think, well over a year ago at a steering committee meeting down in Augusta in room 103. And they, we worked with them. Scott's worked with them. People in our school finance office, Paula Gravel, has helped them to understand, what would be needed. And they've been working on that. At the same time, though, impeding their progress is the fact that they did a site selection activity that was very involved, very thorough, and very inclusive. And it featured a straw poll at which a large majority selected a location in Frenchville, which is geographically about center for most of the people who would be using the school. So after that, 27, Fort Kent articulated their concern that they didn't think that this was going to work out at all, and that they had assumed that, of course, the school would be in Fort Kent, but all the process led them to a different site selection, the inclusive process. And at this point, lots of time has passed, a lot of support has been provided. We've met with them multiple times. I know Scott has, independently of me, and I've been part of meetings that he's, been part of. We've all been working hard with them. But at the end of the day, about 2 weeks ago, there was a letter, which I imagine is one of your exhibits. We shared it with Wilson, a letter from the RSU 27 Fort Kent School Board, saying to basically cease and desist. This isn't how we thought it was going to be, and we want out of the project. And then came a response letter from Madawaska and Frenchville 33, saying, kind of calling out the fact that they have entered into an interlocal agreement that is virtually unbreakable. And so these communities are in a very unfortunate impasse right now. The state doesn't play a role, nor does the Board of Education in any way that I can figure, other than to provide information, to provide support. But ultimately, this is something that these communities will have to be working out themselves. As time has passed, another project that had been slated for the integrated consolidated project model began losing partners, and that was the Holton project. They did not receive the same level of support in terms of FEDUS funding, and so we're kind of lagging and didn't receive official go-ahead for a period of time, I think. And then we provided the go-ahead, and since that time they've lost their partners, to the point where we told Ellen Halliday, the superintendent, recently that, that the process itself, they would not have scored where they scored if they had come forward with only, the two partners remaining. And so, and she was fine with that because the emergency situation presented by the COVID-19 virus has everybody's resources strapped, right to the fullest extent. And really that, she said, that she understood and basically, they're not moving forward at this point with that project. From my perspective, I would humbly offer to the group, because I know you've all been doing this far longer than I have, but I want to offer a few perspectives that you can correct me on if I'm off the mark. One is the integrated consolidated model is exciting and awesome in a lot of ways, but it's prohibitive in a lot of ways too when you think about community identity and the level of harsh, high feelings that surround the notion of closing down local schools. It's a visceral and personal experience, I guess, for people in towns where in some cases the community identity revolves around that local school. So it's understandable in every way. There's been a couple decades of, I think, an ethic around you got to close and consolidate whenever possible to save money. For efficiency's sake, we need to close and consolidate. Similar to the development of RSUs, consolidating school districts and central offices and so forth. And in many cases, that's a great idea. And in some cases, where it has been forced, so, in such a way, it has not provided either an economic or a cultural or a community benefit. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes consolidation is great and innovation is wonderful. And sometimes consolidation is either impossible or so much of a stretch that it's tearing communities apart in ways that might prohibit people from moving forward with projects. So we're sitting on a bond cap that is now under the most recent legislature combined. It's a combined cap that includes the $20 million for integrated consolidated plus the remaining cap for major capital construction. And let's see, I'm kind of on a bird walk, so I'll stop, I think, for a minute and take your thoughts, questions, or comments. But I guess the punchline is we had a meeting with Giselle and Ben Sirois. Giselle Please remind me of her last name.
Giselle Zian?
Yes, they, the two superintendents who now are providing central administration for the, combined the three school districts in the crown of Maine. And they came down to Augusta. I want to point out there that we were very willing. Said I would go up there to meet with them, but they preferred to come down. We met with them. I was there in person, and Dan was there also, Dan Chuda, and we heard them out. They've worked so hard, these two individuals. It's just it's gut-wrenching, to know what they're going through. It's quite a bit. And, these are small towns with huge feelings around all of this. And they thought that the most helpful thing to them to get things moving, because they've had over a year now to come to some sort of agreement on an RSU, would be a deadline. Having a deadline to say, look, by this point in time, you got to do it, or we're going to move on. And the potential for moving on would be that we would say, okay, we rescind the award potentially, and this is, it's out there for your thoughts and ideas and so forth. But if they were unable, say by the end of this year, December 31st, to come to an agreement on an RSU model, how they would govern their school in a combined way, we would rescind the award. This is theoretically, hopefully with your blessing, and be able to repurpose this funding to get some projects moving that have a better chance of success. Or even if the success were for Frenchville and Madawaska alone, like if we changed the model to allow for, smaller numbers of districts to collaborate or to be more reflexive and responsive to the unique needs, because I think we've created a great model, but it's a one-size-fits-all, and it may be too much of a stretch for many districts to sustain. And I guess while I am going to stay on my bird walk, I'm almost done, I promise. Having met with people in our DAF's office, we recognize that the bond interest rates have never been lower, and they may never be this low again. And speaking with Scott, my understanding is that construction bids are coming in at an all-time low, a surprisingly low number. And so, and if that's different now, Scott, feel free to correct me. But operating with that knowledge, we have opportunity, like a bond ceiling with some room in it. We have endless need across our state. And we currently have one project that's kind of holding a lot. We don't want to make plans one way or the other until we know what's going to happen with St. John's Valley, the Valley Unified project. And therefore, we're recommending a deadline for them to either decide to be an RSU and move forward with this, or to, rescind the award and let us, get back to the drawing board and think about, are there more flexible ways in which we could design these types of projects to still impact efficiencies, to support our local and rural communities, and to maximize the window of opportunity with low interest rates and construction costs coming in lower than we would expect. I'll pause here. Thank you.
Question? Peter? Oh, Fern.
I would like to know, since we gave the green light to Dexter and Greenville only at our last meeting, I have not heard anything. So what has happened, Scott, with regards to number 3 on the list, the Greenville Dexter?
They are beginning to try to get back to where they were energy-wise when they submitted the application. I have talked to the superintendent, who is very interested after they come together and do some work of coming to Augusta and meeting with the commissioner and talk about that project. But they're trying to get organized before they request that meeting.
Okay, and when you spoke with the superintendent, I understand a lot of time has gone by, and so he probably doesn't know where the communities really stand on the issue, but does he sound positive that there's potential for project number 3 to move forward, or it seems like there's going to be a real struggle?
No, he didn't indicate the struggle. He probably has one, but he indicated a lot of positive energy and maybe even some other partners. But just one phone conversation I've had with him after that board action. And again, he wants to get their thoughts back together, and at some point soon come down and meet, and we could find out where they are and what the expectations are at that time.
Okay, so that being the case, Commissioner Makin, when you talk about rescinding, are you talking about rescinding only the Valley project, or at the same time we would rescind having given the green light to Dexter and Greenville?
Well, I don't know about that, actually, and I would love to know what your thoughts are on all of it, frankly. I mean, they haven't had a chance really yet. I do think it'll be a challenge for them to generate that excitement. But I had not given consideration to that project in this way yet. So just, I'm open to what your thoughts are.
Okay. Well, my personal thoughts on it, because we've just given them the green light just over a month ago, I would want to give them a chance. We've given a lot of help to the St. John Valley, and it's much appreciated. But not giving that amount of help, if Dexter and Greenville and their other partners, were serious about moving forward and wanted an opportunity to do so, I would hate to pull the rug from under them when they were number 3.
I would agree as well, especially because you just gave them the go-ahead.
Other thoughts? Yes, Jane.
John?
Unmute. Jane, unmute. You're still muted, Jane. Unmute.
I'm trying to get the button to push that, so sorry about that. I'm concerned on the other, the legal aspect of the ending the contract and December 31st. Granted, they've had some time to stew on the whole issue, I'm going to put it that way. And considering the COVID and everything, is giving a deadline of December 31st realistic? I don't know, but I would love to see St. John not have little skirmishes and move ahead.
And to be clear, that deadline that we suggested was at the leaders' request. They think that there won't be movement if there isn't one, but I also understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
And those of us who have been around for a long time remember many flags, which was our first attempt to use this rule and to have an integrated, consolidated school, and that fell apart. So I'm really anxious to see some organization get that way. But if we're pulling the plug, we certainly can't change the rules in midstream. 6 districts came forward and went through step number 1 on this list. We only moved 3 forward to step 2, and so I feel like if we pull the plug, we got to start all over again. Maybe with different number of schools or whatever, but I don't feel it would be fair to those other 3 entities. And Scott, you probably know who they are. I don't have that right in front of me, but I would feel very badly.
Yes.
I, for what it's worth, would agree that if we're unable to move forward with St. John's Valley and the Dexter folks, I think we might consider a program model that's less. Oh, can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Hey, Bob. Oh, hey, I'm on a conference call for state construction. I'll give you a call back if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll call you back. Thanks.
Anyway, I think if we maybe adjusted the program model just a tad, we might see that some of these high aspirations that we were shooting for may be prohibitive in such a way that we're, spinning our wheels a lot and having districts try really hard to fit into the glass slipper that isn't going to fit precisely.
Hasn't the issue always been the legal entity that's being created? You have these individual entities that are going to create something totally different, and so that seems to me that the issue has always been, what the heck is it, and how do you make it happen? In this particular case, you got one district that's pulling out because they want to have one vote, one voice, or whatever. The other two seem sincere. I mean, everybody seems very sincere in their efforts. But if 27 is going to pull out, then they're going to pull out. Are we thinking it's going to change between now and the end of the year? Or are we just giving them the end of the year to work it out? Or have I missed everything?
No, Commissioner, if you don't mind, this is Scott, and I would prefer. I'm not sure the pull the plug is the appropriate term. We've been supporting and working with them very hard, and everyone involved has been trying to help them and I don't have the time frame, but it's been several years officially, and even before that. I think what the districts came to the commissioner recently, as a result of those letters, we all realize that we need to set a time for even for the local communities, which was their request, and even for the state, because it has been such a thorough vetting of information that appears to be coming to the end and would go nowhere without the time limitation. And that was brought forth from the districts. I'd prefer to think if that happens, it's run a full course and nobody really pulled a plug, would be the way I would interpret that. And I would think they would feel the same way, that we've been supportive and we're just trying to, we have a responsibility to move forward, as the commissioners explained, with other obligations. When this one has run its full cycle, and we believe we're close to that. We hope not, but so that would be my response, Peter. I'm not sure if that's helpful. And I think on the heels of that, we would probably do the same thing. And I need to talk to the commissioner once the project number 3 comes. We would need to talk about governance, which I believe you were alluding to. That seems to be the challenge of all these districts, and maybe even set some time horizon for them to work on that, so that we could finally clear the slate and move forward at some point after that. I'm not sure if that's helpful. But
and Scott, the cost of construction, Pam, you said it's going way down. The cost of materials isn't going down. So what's going down in the cost of construction? I don't see it. You said in an earlier meeting that I think there was a lot of people bidding, but is the cost of construction going down? Because it certainly isn't where I live.
I'm not sure going down. I think it has been trending better than it was. Everything was overheated, as we all know, in the past several years. So I think some of that has definitely cooled off. The only direct experience we have was recently, as you know, we had that Sumner project that we put out to bid that is within our budget. It was a little hard one because it is in a bit of a remote location, but we did have very busy bidding activity, which was great for a rural location, and we are within our budget or slightly into our contingency. So that was a really positive thing that we've experienced firsthand, I would say, where that could have been just a few bidders or one bidder or some of the other challenges that we've seen that would not have been good. So I would say, in conclusion, our one recent experience has been good, and several of the revolving fund projects we believe have been benefited from a better bidding environment.
Okay.
Chair Harris?
Here, yes, Fern.
Okay, thank you. I'm very much in support of consolidated efforts, as you well know, and I'm very much in support of stretching dollars as much as we can. I'm very much aware of the needs for our facilities throughout the state of Maine, and I listened attentively to the commissioner and to this conversation about, the money, the interest rate is really low right now. I know that from local things and personal things. So, money can be stretched if we use it now, if we, use our bonds now. And school construction or any construction, I see that in the same vein as what was just presented to us by both Scott, by both Scott and the commissioner. So that being the case, I hate for us to be sitting when we could be moving forward with the project, but I also want us to be doing things as right as we can. So I do support the commissioner's deadline for the reasons that was stated by both her and by Scott. And I do want to give number 3 some chance, but I think we need to be thinking about how can we use our money to benefit our schools that are waiting in the pipeline and have needs. And I do want to mention that the idea of going out with perhaps a different consolidated project, and maybe Scott doesn't want to hear this because I know it's a lot of work when you open this up and the whole application process and scoring those applications, it's a lot. But maybe if we open it up and maybe we take input from our schools throughout our school systems throughout the state of what their interests would be without doing individual projects, because we've talked about this in our retreat last year about if we're going to replace every single one of our elementary, middle, and high schools, we can't afford it. And it's not about just getting more and more money. It's about, using our monies efficiently as well. So those are my thoughts. And Scott, I'm going to put you on the spot as much as I hate to do that, but what is your, we've heard the commissioner, and I much respect our commissioner, and you've been with school construction for years and years. And I'm curious to see what would be your top 3 choices of how we would move forward at this point in time, or top 2 choices.
I think it's fairly simple from talking with the commissioner. I mean, we certainly give 1 and 3 their full opportunity to develop something in hopes that they can. And after that, your rule is a major substantive rule, but also your rule is pretty thorough. And that was put in with many flags. It was pretty thorough. And that did not require 3 high schools. By rule, it required 2. It was the pilot initiative that was developed several years ago that it was made very clearly that there would be a minimum of 3 to identify that pilot at that time. And so we went forward with that being told that was the pilot and that was the baseline. And every state in every district in the state were told that, and people came forward with 5 and 4 and 3 and 2, and it went through a very public and very thorough rating process based on that scalability of 3 projects. Your rule requires 2. I would think we could look at that. It is major substantive, so I think it's all inclusive. I would probably suggest that maybe we could develop our own lens and put it back out after we're fully comfortable with where 1 and 3 stand, and go through a very similar process with, meanwhile, staying consistent with your rule, which would still incorporate some efficiencies where they're achievable and be less of a stretch, as the commissioner put it, that we have recognized from this process. That would be something that would seem very, very rational and consistent with the intent of the law. If you go singular, I mean, we have the major capital construction program, and just to remind you, none of the districts that we're talking about applied for that last time. They applied for this. We didn't force them. This is what they wanted to apply for, and they did. And that application cycle will still be available for individual schools. And maybe this one in your rule, which was around integration and consolidation, that's what it's called, could be still done and with less of a stretch, as the commissioner stated. So if you ask me, I think you're all set if we just let it play out and support those projects. And after that, we would do another cycle. I haven't talked in detail of that to the commissioner, but you put me on the spot a little, but we certainly could do that.
I understand.
Scott, is there money available to give the kind of support that we give in St. John Valley to the Dexter group, the third one?
That would be a question for the commissioner, and I know funds are really difficult at this point, and projecting that is very difficult. We would have to work with her office in ultimately making those commitments.
Well, I just think it's unfair for them if they don't have some of those resources that we gave to project number one.
Yeah.
Scott, haven't we given, or hasn't there been given through competitive processes something pretty north of $2 million to Valley United over a course of years to develop what they're developing?
I don't know that. I would say I would not be surprised that kind of money has gone up there to support them in many efforts. But school construction, I would say no, Wilson. It would be significantly less than that. I would imagine that I think we spent maybe a couple $100,000 assisting them with planning and site work and all those public hearings and all the work that went into that. And I think there's other funding that was projected to be available to help them with the plan if they ever got there, but nowhere near $2 million that I'm aware of. It could be for other things for
I think if we look at the documents that were distributed, there's reason to suggest that in terms of the overall planning process, not just the school construction process, in bringing Valley Unified together, I think if we look through those documents, we're going to see it's north of $2 million. So.
You're right, Chair Hess, because they had the first Embrace grant, and then they received 2 of the FEDIS grants, and they were 3 significant grants.
But all of that was not construction, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
That would be my point.
But it was based upon the idea of consolidation and maybe it wasn't the construction, but it certainly was trying to get the 3 districts together and working together.
You're right, Martha.
So I'm just worried that if we don't have those kinds of resources to give to project number 3, we're only asking them not to be able to do it. Yes.
On the other hand, if they pull it off on their own, then they're really serious about getting it done.
Right.
Wilson? It would be difficult.
Wilson?
Yeah, I'm sorry we lost the commissioner. I don't know whether she had other obligations or whether she had a communications problem. It is a question that I wanted to ask her, and I would appreciate anyone's insight on this, as to whether or not there has been either a verbal or a written communication to the folks at Valley Unified about a deadline, or has there just been discussion about a deadline, whether it be December or otherwise? I hear things which don't all come together, and I think it's important for the committee to understand that if a deadline has been issued, I think the committee needs to know what the terms of that are. If we're being requested to consider issuing a deadline, I think it's important that we get context on that too. So I'll toss that back to you, Martha. I don't know if your other folks in the committee know much about it, or Scott's in a position to talk about it.
Well, I don't know the answer to the question. Do you, Scott?
I'm aware of the deadline, the communication with the superintendents, and I know the commissioner was working on a written. I'm aware that she was working on it, but I have not seen the copy that went, or if one went. I do not know the answer to the chair's question. But I am aware there was a personal communication that explained it clearly.
I think it would be useful for this committee to understand what that intent is. The state board has issued, permission to proceed, and if the commissioner is planning to issue a deadline, as I indicated to her in my discussions, I hope it's not a line that's been drawn in the sand that says as of a date certain, and I've heard the end of December mentioned, that all options are closed, or whether it is a deadline that has conditions that can lead to progress that would go beyond that. I think that communication needs to be clear to us and clear to them for their purposes, so that they can try to meet such a deadline, and for our purposes that we can understand what the options are for action on our part.
So isn't it our purview as the board to decide when things either go forward or no longer go forward? That's my understanding.
That's my assumption too, Martha.
Okay.
But if there's been a communication that's been made by the commissioner or a member of her staff, I think this body needs to understand what that communication is.
Yep. And especially if it's been in writing, we should see a copy.
And if it hasn't been put in writing, probably needs to be put in writing, and we need to see a copy before it goes out.
I would think so. And we're not prepared today to make any decisions on this. We're just trying to get some fact information. At least that's my position.
I would agree with that too, but if a decision has been communicated, even verbally, I would like to know what the position of this committee is to guide either you, Martha, or me in communicating to the commissioner of what our expectations are.
Comments from members? Yes, Fern.
I think the commissioner has already stated that what she did when she set that guideline was give the superintendent, assistant superintendent, what they asked for. That they felt that if they were given a deadline, then things could happen. And I'm not sure if they meant one way or the other, but I think she responded to the request of the superintendents. And so my position on it is I would respect what has already been communicated to those communities and has been in the media. I've seen it in the newspaper. It's been published. There's a deadline. It's been set by the commissioner, and I would support the action of my commissioner at this point to December 31st. If they don't have anything, then we proceed in a different direction as proposed, or as an option of what Scott shared with us would be our choices. But again, number 3 should be given a chance because they've had no opportunity. They've basically had about 6 weeks, Scott?
6, yes.
About 6 weeks. So
yes, and remember that those districts in that area are extremely busy with everything else that's going on to immediately come together and give us a response on where they are. I think we need to give them some time to get collected and come back to us.
Right. We've given a couple years to the Valley. We should be willing to give some reasonable amount of time to number 3.
I would agree with Fern.
had one other comment, and I too am sad that the commissioner had to leave us, or maybe she's in a dead zone. We have a lot of those in Maine.
Yes,
but it is my experience that the disagreements and the local control situation is the adults. What I've been amazed when I talk to students is that they don't have that kind of feeling. They want the resources and the ability to be able to get together. So and some people have done it. An example is the Corinth Elementary School. They closed 5 schools. Now, it took several years of, going to the various districts and explaining, yes, you're going to lose your little school in your particular community. But it's been wonderful. And there's been several other examples. That's just the one I'm thinking of right now. We were amazed, Peter and Scott and I, when we went to the open house at that school. And they worked very hard to get the community support, but it can be done.
Hey, Martha, do you have a film over your camera? It's your new camera, right? Is there like a little plastic film over it?
It's my new, yes, it's brand new. Oh, there is.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I was wondering why you were sort of in a shadow.
Oh, it's warm even. Thank you.
Now you're even more beautiful.
It's brand new. I got it yesterday.
Well, I figured maybe you hadn't taken it off yet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Now
Martha, that sheds a whole new light on everything.
Start over, Peter. Let's start over.
Wilson, do you want?
If I could just try to get some clear guidance, because I don't want to be off out on the end of a limb with a saw. I've got lots of experience doing that. It's not a lot of fun. But I want you to know that I've had multiple conversations with the commissioner about this deadline, and I've heard different things. I've heard that she's given them a deadline. I've heard that she hasn't given them a deadline, but has discussed a deadline. I've asked about if there's anything been in writing. I've been told no. Okay? I don't want us to be part of a pickle on New Year's Day when someone comes to us and says they haven't met their deadline. I think at the very least, if there's a deadline, those folks deserve, and the board deserves, something in writing that tells us what the terms of the deadline are and what the conditions of the deadline are. And I'm happy to carry that message forward if that's your will. But if it's not your will, I would ask, please give me clear guidance that you don't want that issue pressed.
I think one can say that we heard her say, I would say to the commissioner, we heard you say that a deadline was issued. Was it done in writing, or wasn't it, or could it be put in writing? I think we would all agree that it's better to have it in writing than to have it verbal, even if all parties agreed. So maybe if she hasn't put it in writing, she should put it in writing now.
Well, I think she should put it in writing and present it to us, because it's the board's purview to either admit these projects or not. We've already done that with project number 2.
Yep.
But it's our decision to make. So if that's being recommended by the commissioner, I think we should see a draft of the letter and be able to fully discuss it and make recommendations as this committee does to the whole board. And that's what I would like Wilson to take back. But, I'm only one person.
But you're a good person.
Well, thank you.
Well, I mean, the way you're talking, this could take months until somebody does something, and then we meet and we approve, and then we go to the board. I don't know. I would personally like to see her. If we agree to the fact that there should be a December 31st deadline, I don't care who sends the letter to them. Do we agree or do we disagree that there should be a deadline? I think we agree.
Well, I'm not prepared I don't think we have enough information in order to make that kind of recommendation, and it wasn't on our agenda either. Fern?
I'm just thinking about something. This is our local paper. This is the headline.
Yeah.
And so it says, state sets Valley Union deadline. 3 units must agree on regional plan by December 31st to keep project alive. She's stated it to them. She's stated it to us. Obviously, she wouldn't have changed what she said. And it's, like I had said earlier, it's been published in the papers. I would not, at this point, change what the commissioner did. I think she did. I will respect what she did. And I would ask exactly how you stated it, Martha. I think it's reasonable for us to expect it in writing. And so there's clear communication, even though everybody knows this is what was said. Let's have it in writing, and it gives us the clear terms, as Chair Hess also said, the clear terms of what to expect here. And so December 31st comes around, and either they have it or they don't. It's in writing. It's not just, a reporter misrepresenting what had taken place. And I don't see us.
The commissioner's back with us.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I don't know if you can still hear me. Sorry.
Very clearly. It's good.
Good. Well, I had the whole meeting got dropped. Sorry. Yes, and I think at this point it was an agreement that we all came to at our in-person meeting, but I don't believe they've been provided with anything official in writing, and we wanted certainly to get your thoughts on this. But as you probably know, Fern, that the news does get out there ahead of a lot of things, and they've relayed, at least in verbally, and there may I'll have to check and see if there was any type of informal email assertion that we were in favor of that request for the deadline, but I'll double check on that, and we can certainly provide something in writing to the board first, and you guys can all talk about it and vote on it if you feel that's appropriate before it goes as an official thing. I know that we're also in the middle of creating a special form that doesn't exist exactly as we want it to, for them to present us with a plan to become an RSU in case they do make that decision. So Paula Gravel is currently modifying an existing form to make it work for what they would be hoping to do.
Commissioner, you weren't on when we had several discussions, one of which we were asking if there's going to be money available for project number 3 to help them the way we've been able to help project number 1.
Sadly, no, and that was one of the problems for project number 2 as well. Almost all of the FEDIS money, just a huge, I wouldn't say almost all of it, a large ratio of that money went to Valley Unified, which is one of and the second, Holton, was holding out, hoping that they would similarly have opportunity to use FEDIS funding to do all of the work that Valley Unified originally did, and the funding doesn't exist anymore. So it was like a one-time amount from the general fund, I understand, directly from Governor LePage.